For culinary delights, there's the market, with its meat stalls, and the delicatessen section with its dubious delicacies. Not everybody's cup of tea, but the Tibetans seem to enjoy what the market has to offer. Today, the town is again enjoying some growth. Mud bricks are manufactured in the traditional way, using a process that has been part of Tibetan life for centuries. Mechanization is very basic, while women and children make up most of the labor force. A big step forward in town planning is the introduction of sewerage drains, something unheard of in Tibet until recently. With trees and firewood being scarce at this altitude, the people have, through the centuries, resorted to another form of fuel for heat and cooking. Yak dung. The sight of it, drying in the sun and even being sold at roadside stalls, is not uncommon. Another idea that strikes the adventurer traveling through these regions as being somewhat unfamiliar is the fact that the local bathhouse happens also to be the local wash house and the local kitchen sink. Provided the bathers can get into the queue before the dirty clothes and greasy dishes, the principle should cause no problems. Carpet making in the factories of Shigatse, amid the looms and wool bales, is a happy affair. There are no unhappy faces to be seen, only smiles. Carpet making is also a family affair, with the craft of spinning and weaving in the Tibetan tradition handed down from parent to child. The children of the carpet weavers grow up in the factory. It's a home, a school, and a childcare centre. The training of tomorrow's carpet makers begins at a very early age. The carpets of Shigatse are famous, their colours and complex patterns being quite unique. But with Tibetan carpets no longer exported, the only chance most people have of acquiring one is to buy it on the way through. The distance from Shigatse to Tingri is 300 kilometers with little traffic, except for the strange sight so far from anywhere of a pair of cyclists. The idea of cycling uphill through the tallest mountains in the world seemed just a little too adventurous. Hello. The road is good, but then it receives little wear from the passing traffic. On the other hand, it also receives constant attention from the local road authority, who see that it's constantly graded by road graders like this. Surprisingly, they do a good job. On this stretch of road, the adventurers came upon two people, one standing beside the road, the other just an inert body lying on the road. Knowing that bandits were suspected of operating in the area, the Tibetan driver played cautious and pressed on. After days of heat and dust, the hot springs of Lhasa offered some real relaxation and a chance to bathe, its tepid water soothing away the weariness of a long journey. The lunch of spam, hard-boiled eggs and tinned mandarins brought with it a curious crowd. This was the classic role reversal, where the spectators became the spectacle. After lunch, the journey resumed, with Tingri the next stop. Tingri's claim to fame is that it's a stepping-off stage for any expedition of Mount Everest from the northern side. Tingri today is, in fact, two tiny towns nestling among the surrounding hills. In Tingri, there's a guest house with facilities that can only be described as the pits. A few houses and very basic amenities. Tingri was originally blessed with one of the most majestic and spectacular monasteries in all of Tibet, and that was before its complete destruction during the Chinese Cultural Revolution of the 60s. The local children smiled for the expedition members and led the way like mountain goats up through the rubble and ruins to where they could get a better view. It took stout hearts and stout legs to climb even part of the way to the top. But the agony was worthwhile, because here they met this man, a single lama who has set about rebuilding the monastery in its entirety with the help of a few fellow optimists. The task seems an impossible one, but in Tibet, the concept of time has a different meaning.
So that particular monastery, covering the whole top of that particular hill, mountain, would have probably been bigger than the Potala Palace in Lhasa, probably even a greater site as a whole, simply because of its isolation and where it was built. It amazes you how they even could build anything like that there in the first place.
Here, among the mountain people of Tibet, time is measured in terms of eternity, and a lifetime is only one reincarnation within that eternity. So, as the eagle soars through the blue sky above the old Tingri today, it may walk slowly through the streets of a rebuilt Tingri as a man tomorrow. The same streets these foreigners walked through in May 1985. From Tingri, the base camp of Mount Everest is only 60 kilometers away. Initially, the road is flat and smooth, with no feeling of being in the mountains at all. But then the road becomes rough and winding, making it clear that this mountain is nothing ordinary. There is a price to pay for the privilege of gazing upon the highest point on this earth of ours. To the delight of the travelers, the air on this particular day is crystal clear. It's an unexpected bonus, because cloud more often than not forms a curtain across the spectacle. This place, this view, is in more ways than one the high point of the whole adventure, the culmination. Consensus has it that no one can stand here without being affected emotionally in some way. It may be the altitude. It may be the tiredness of a long road left behind. It could even be the intensity of light up here, because it passes through a thinner layer of the atmosphere. Whatever the reason, there is a feeling of awe and wonderment, because this is it.
Just looking at Everest, it's very hard to believe that you're actually here. Just that it's a little bit breezy, and you look over and there it all is.
I've done something I always wanted to do. I didn't believe my own two eyes would see the place.
And just to see all those peaks, Sichuan-Bangma, Mount Everest, Fishtail Mountain, and it just goes on, the whole Himalayan range. It's fantastic.
After all these years, I'm finally out of the National Geographic and it's all popped up before me.
The journey from Tingri to the border town of Zam is approximately 200 kilometers. The road passes several small villages that emerge at intervals along the otherwise flat valley floor. And further on, these villages give way to a stretch of road that takes the group into a fantasy world. A 10-kilometer drive through something that might well be a massive set built for some science fiction movie. The road passes an array of ruined buildings, which stand like grim reminders of a vicious war, and yet, in reality, their demise was a natural one. These were the homes of farming families, deserted centuries ago, apparently when the people moved away to avoid season upon season of sandstorms. Through the centuries, these once splendid buildings have simply fallen into ruin. One man only remained on the day the group passed through. He sang songs that to the Western ears sounded plaintive and sad. Songs perhaps about those ancient times when the valley was green and the houses alive with happy people. Soon the road descends, passing a multiplicity of mountain streams that cascade through the rocky valley, then join forces and become raging rivers. Fed by the melting spring snow, they bubble and foam their way to the sea. As the road descends, the colours change, from earth tones to forest green. The valley is often shrouded in grey mists. The road itself is a spectacle of note. It's a tortuous journey, traversing precipitous mountain slopes and cutting through solid rock in parts. At Zam, the border town, a monument has been erected to commemorate the hundreds of workers who perished while building this road. Zamu is a pleasant town that can boast some modern buildings and brisk trading. Here, the road ends, all approaches to the recently completed road bridge having been destroyed by landslides. Today, the explorers must make their way across the border by footbridge. It's a strange way to enter the country of Nepal, but it serves as a symbol of the division here, both politically and culturally. On one side of the river is a form of material poverty, yet a richness of culture and belief. On the other are cold beers, clean beds, and most of the luxuries that money can buy. But the mystique, the mystery, is gone. There is a mercenary feel here, a loss of innocence that made up so much of the charm of Tibet. A bus ride took the adventurers the 120 kilometers from the border to Kathmandu. Constant stops along the way allowed the contrast to be seen. Little villages by the roadside, a multi-leveled rice paddy. Nepal is a land with strong Indian influences, a land where Buddhism and Hinduism live side by side. Even temples are used by both groups. It's curious then that the law forbids any person to change religion. And that's not the only anomaly. The selling of marijuana carries a lesser sentence than accidentally knocking down a cow in the street. In fact, the sentence for killing a cow can be up to 20 years in prison. In Kathmandu, particularly, can be seen a kaleidoscope of people. Among them, some of the progeny of the Westerners who came here during the hippie days, the days of freedom and the search for one's self. Today, it's a place of contrasts. Eastern and Western, Buddhist and Hindu, poverty and riches. A place the group of travelers prefer to leave sooner than later. A place that once, perhaps, was as compelling as Tibet, but today stands as a grim warning of what Tibet may become once the money and the modernization show their real effects.
When we crossed the border, across these incredible planks across the Botukosi River, which becomes the Sunkosi River, now pretty well known, It was at that moment that when we saw the first Nepalese, the first comment from one of the group was, "Heavens above, what a pity, we've left Tibet." The Nepalese looked more Western, looked spoiled. That was the word that was subtly used, that the impact was so sudden, having left. And we felt almost let down. We felt empty. On the one hand, we were glad to sort of have the feeling of getting back to civilization, as we thought as such. On the other hand, there was a emptiness suddenly leaving China behind.
The Tibetan people, in my opinion, were the highlight of the trip. When you look at people who live under those conditions, with all the obvious lack of what cons as we know them, and they have this wonderful smile and tremendous personalities, you've really got to come away in saying that Tibet is the people.
This is the end of the adventure. The reality is now carefully filed away in the minds and memories of the individuals who undertook this once forbidden journey. No longer will they see the lands of China, Tibet and Nepal in magazine images. Looking at pictures will bring back realities, especially of Tibet, a harsh land, yet with such gentle inhabitants.